Good morning, dear analysts. Welcome back to our project class. This is week 7. Today, we'll be dealing with a real world business case as usual. So, our client ran a global advertising campaign with a massive $28 million investment, but the returns weren't consistent. For example, some countries generated an incredible 300% return on investment, while others saw a negative 15% return on investment. What happened? Where did the money work and where did it fail? So that is what we want to determine today. But we want to be doing that using visualization. We want to look at performance and return on investment performance using visualization. So our job as data analysts is to explore the campaign data, spot patterns, and build an interactive dashboard that tells a clear and compelling story. So in this class, we'll be learning how to create visuals like map, bar charts, and showing or displaying our KPIs using cards. We will also be using slicers to interact with data and most importantly, tell a story with our dashboards. We already, through our journey so far, have learned how to import and clean data. Today's data was presented as text. So we'll be importing that data, calculating measures that we'll use in our visualization. Okay, so let's go ahead and import the data. The text file is not imported differently from a CSV file, so they are imported the same way. Before we even go ahead to import our data, for those of you that have not yet mastered Power BI, let's just run through the interface of Power BI. Power BI interface can be overwhelming, but not different really from the interface you're used to in Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel and so on. So it is grouped based on similar functions and grouped under tabs, right? In the ribbon here, you can see we have home, we have insert, we have modeling, we have view, we have optimize, and file and help are just additional tabs here. The home tab have commands that will help us with working in our dashboards. Basically, from importing our data, right? You can see it here in the data group, to transforming our data in queries, that is refreshing queries, and transforming further, okay? Then we have the insert group of commands here that can help us insert visuals. So the insert here is for us to insert visuals, various types of visuals, right? The modeling is based on our relationships, where we can create parameters. We'll do parameters some other time in another class, okay? Then the view here talks about the view, how we can set the stage for our designs, okay? We have the themes, we have the page layout, and so on and so forth. Whether you like the grid lines to be present or not, whether you want it to snap to grid, that is your visuals to snap to grid or not, whether you want to lock objects or not. So as you use this, you become conversant with them. Then we have 3 panes here. We have the filter pane, the visualization pane, and the data pane. We haven't added any data here. If not, you will have seen the data or the tables that we've added here. For visualization, this is where we pick our visuals to build. While we use them, you will get to understand this better. Okay, so we have 3 main views in Power BI. We have the report view, which is this view that you are looking at here. We have the table view, which shows the table that you have. Then we have the model view. The model view is where we create our relationships, where we connect our table or one table to the other. Okay, because we don't have any table, we will not see anything yet. Okay, but let's go ahead now and import data. Remember from my description, we can import data from our home tab, right? Under data group. You click on get data, and we want to get data using the text /CSV method. All of these channels are means of getting data into Power BI. Okay. So you have to really be setting about how your data is stored and where it's stored so that you can get this done properly. So our data is stored as text or saved as text. So I'm going to click text so that it takes us to the folder in our system where we have saved our data. So I'm going to click on it to pick the data I want and click on open. When I do that, it's going to open a preview for me, right? So we can look at a preview. You can decide to see what the data type detection based on the entire data set. This data type detection can be based on your first 200 rows, right? Can be based on the entire data set, or you want it not to detect data types. It's your choice. So you see, it's a text. If you say you don't want it to detect data type, this is what you get. But we want it to detect data type so that it makes things easy for us. As we can see, everything is what we want it to be. All right, now, so since everything looks good, so what we'll do is to click on load. Remember, I know you are not new to this, but if you want to transform further in Power Query, you click on transform data. So let's click on load to load our data into Power BI. Right now, we have loaded our data into Power BI. And when we come to the table view, you are going to see the table that we imported. Okay, so this is the data. However, we are going to be adding more columns and we'll be using data analysis expression to add more columns. Okay, let us go to the table view now. You see what happened. Right now, we have table tools, right? So that is what I was telling us about earlier. If you go to the report view, you are going to have functions that will help you in building your dashboards. Okay, so let's head on to the table view so that we add the columns we want to add. Well, based on the problem statement that we just read, we want to compare return on investments from various countries and also see how the media channel used for advertisement changes that. Okay, we also want to see performance, those who have high ROI and those who have low ROIs. Okay, so right now with what we have, you can see that we have ad spend here in local currency. This local currency based on the countries, right? And you can see we have foreign exchange rate here to USD. Okay, we've been provided with that. So we can add a new column to calculate what our ad spend in USD. Okay, so to do that, under calculations here, let's click on new column and we can call that new column ad spend USD. Okay, so ad spend in USD will be equal to, that is, we just want to multiply foreign exchange exchange rate by the ad spend in local currency. Okay, that is what we want to do. We can go ahead and write this way. Okay, we want to multiply ad spend local by foreign exchange. Let's hit enter. We will have calculated our outspend in USD. Okay, let's begin with the total ad spend measure. Okay, so these are ad spend column now that we just added. Let's calculate the sum of it. So we will add new measure. Okay, and that measure will be called total ad spend. Okay, total ad spend equal. So it's going to be sum because we are summing that, open parentheses. So we are looking at the ad spend in USD, right? Close parentheses and hit enter. We have the total ad spend measure calculated now. All right, now we've calculated our total spend. That is the sum of the ad spend in USD here. Let us calculate the total of the revenue generated in USD. Okay, so we want to insert another measure. Okay, so say new measure, and that new measure will be called total revenue because it's the sum of the revenue. Okay, so that will be equal sum, open parentheses, of revenue generated in USD. Okay, so that is fine. We hit enter. We'll have calculated our total revenue. What we need to calculate now is our return on investment. And we have everything we need to calculate our return on investment. We have ad spend now, and we have revenue generated. Okay, so ad spend is cost, right? Basically, what we spent, right? And the revenue here is what we generated. Okay, so we'll be subtracting ad spend from revenue generated, dividing that by what? By ad spend, which is cost, multiplied by 100. So that is how it's going to go down. Okay. All right. So let us go to table 2 and insert a new column. So our new column will be called ROI, that is return on investment, equal. So say ROI equals, we use the divide function here. We use the divide function, open parentheses. So we have to insert our numerator, but our numerator is going to be ad spend subtracted from revenue, right? So remember, our table name is very important here. So we want to have revenue generated minus ad spend, right? Ad spend in USD, okay? So this now will form our numerator. When we'll say comma, we now have to go into our denominator. Our denominator is going to be ad spend as well, because that is cost. So we are saying revenue generated minus cost, which is ad spend, divided by cost. So we will still go on to say ad spend, okay? We close our parentheses and we are going to multiply this result by 100, okay? All right, so we hit enter to have our ROI, okay? So this is our ROI now. We are supposed to calculate the average return on investment to use that in one of our KPI cards, but I'll leave that so that I use it to discuss implicit and explicit measures with you, okay? So now that we are done with preparing our data further for our visualization, let us go on to create our visuals. All right, let's go to our report view. From here, we begin to insert our visuals. So, but before we jump into dashboard designs or begin to insert our visuals, we need to have this checklist in mind. We need to ask the following questions. Who is the end user of this dashboard? Remember, we talked about the different levels in an organization or stakeholders, right, that you interact with. So who is the end user? The end users, executive, or those in operations or in marketing. Then the second is, what actions will they take from the dashboard? So the third is, what metrics drive decisions? That is, we are looking at key performance indicators versus context. Then the fourth is, do they want summaries, drill downs, or comparisons? So by the time you look at all of these and you can answer these questions squarely and correctly, you will know the type of visuals you use based on the data you have for you and the key performance indicators you must derive. Now we have to insert our key performance indicators, and the knowledge of those key performance indicators is the one that helps us to already create our measures. Now let's add cards, quick high-level indicators of how the campaign performed. These are especially useful for executives who want to see results at a glance. We'll start with a card visual for the total ad spend, okay? So from the visualization in here, we are going to be selecting card, okay? Then we will drag ad spend, the fill area, okay? We want to look at this total ad spend, right? We'll take it to the fill area. And so we can have our total ad spend here now, okay? So let us do the same for the total revenue, okay? Now we are still going to be inserting another card. Let's drag it here. And then we pick total revenue to the field area. We are taking total revenue here. And so we have our total revenue. Because we used measures, that is why we don't have sum of, right? We instead have the title that we labeled as, okay? So let us insert a third card, okay, for visualization of our key performance indicator. And that card will visualize our average return on investment. We insert another card. Let's keep that card here too. If we go to ROI, you see we did not calculate the total ROI, neither did we calculate the average ROI. Okay, so we drag that to the field area. You see immediately it calculated the sum of ROI, because in Power BI, when we drag to the field area, it automatically calculates the sum, something you can experience with pivot tables in Microsoft Excel. Okay. So, but when you click the drop down on these, you can select different kinds of calculations you want to perform, whether it's average, minimum, maximum, count for distinct accounts, okay? And so on and so forth, okay? But let's select average. You can see we have average of ROI, okay? You can also edit this label, basically rename this measure. You can rename this measure. You click the drop down and say rename for this visual, and you can easily rename that. For in our case, let us take off out and say average ROI. So you can see that, right? Now, I want to use this opportunity to re-explain implicit and explicit measures. So simply, implicit measures are created by Power BI to summarize data. For instance, in the case of average ROI, we just the return on investment into fields and it summed it automatically. And we could also select whether it's the average that we want. So those are implicit measures. The explicit measures are the measures we calculate using data analysis expression, that is DAX, okay? We have created these three. Let us go ahead to the next visual we will be creating. And that visual will be the map visual, okay? So now let's create a map to help us visualize how different countries performed in the campaign. So from the visualization pane, we are going to be picking the map, okay? So let me click on the map now, and we have entered the map. So we are going to be dragging country, right, into the location here. Then if we look at these, we have bubble size. So I'm going to be picking ROI or return on investment into what? The bubble size, okay? So this will give us the size or determine the size of our bubble. So you can see that. So let us adjust this side because we are going to be putting or inserting a bar here, a column here, okay? So we have two more visuals to go, okay? We have a clustered column chart to insert, as well as a clustered bar chart to insert. So let's insert a clustered bar chart. Clustered bar chart here will help us compare the return on investment of each country side by side. So we have inserted the clustered bar chart. Let us pick country. We'll take country to the y-axis, and we'll take return on investment to the x-axis. So we will get something like this, okay? Then we'll come back to editing the dashboard and making sure everything is well arranged. We'll be working on each and every visual, but we just want to insert them, then we can work on them, okay? So then we need to compare the media channel and the return on investment, okay? We need to determine that as well. So let's insert a clustered column chart. So we'll take that here. And here we want to look at what the media channel. So we'll take media channel to the x-axis and then return on investment to the y-axis. Now we have sum of return on investment, right? So if the goal is to look at the average return on investment, You click the drop down here and select average. And so you can easily visualize the average return on investment based on what? Based on the channel, because we want to determine that as well. We want to see how channel performed, okay, or enhance return on investment. So let's work with average. Okay, let us organize our dashboard now, okay? And the last time I talked about this, I showed us that we could select the team that we want. Okay, you could select any team that you want. Now, let us work on the cards. If you click on any visual, you come on to the visualization pane and click format visuals. Okay, in format visuals, you have visual and general, right? Now, under visual here, this is what they are talking about here. That is the call out values and the category label. If you put off the category label, you don't have that label anymore. The only reason you put off the category label is if you want to put on the title, right? On the general, you can work on the effects. Right now, we don't have a background. You can decide to give it a background, okay? You can also put on your shadow and work on the shadow, the color of the shadow, whether the offset will be inside or outside, okay? You can also determine the position of the shadow, whether it's going to be center. You can see how the center shadow works, okay? So let's go back there to general and effect. Let's look at the background color, something maybe lighter. Let's click on more color and pick something lighter close to white. All right, now you have done that successfully. So instead of continuing the same process all over again, I'm going to use Format Painter in the Home tab. Click on what I've formatted already, click on Format Painter and click to paste basically the formatting I had done here. Okay, so you can see that it's easy. Let's do the same for this. Click on this, I've set the formatting here, right? I click on Format Painter and paste it here as well, okay? Like I go to Insert now and I say Shape. I can pick a particular shape, right? I can work on it under Format Shape. Is the shape so I can reduce the rounded corners, right? Or increase the rounded corners as I like, okay? You can reduce the rounded corners, okay? The color is already matching our theme, so we like that. Then under format here, I can send it backward. Okay, I'll say send to back. Okay, so that we have something like this. So you can decide, it's just about designs. You can decide to design this in ways that they are going to be very beautiful. Okay, so I can copy and paste this and move this as well. So let me send this to back or send this backward. Okay, I have that too. I do the same thing for this as well. And I send this backward. Okay, now you can see that our visual is making a whole lot of sense. It's getting beautiful. Okay, so we have basically done this. Stakeholders can see this now and easily understand that it was our total ad spend, or this is how much we spent on ads. It was our total revenue, and this is our average return on investment. You know that return on investment here, you can decide to put up the sum of return on investment or the average return on investment. So now let's go to the map. So for the map now, if you utilize this other map, so this is what you are going to have if you utilize the field map. Okay, so this is what you have. So you can choose between the map and the field map. Okay, it's just that in the map now, we could look at the size, right? The size of it, so that we could basically use return on investment. For instance, when you go back to the map, you can see what I'm talking about. You see that we have bubble size where we use sum of return on investment as the size of the bubble. Okay, so that is the difference. Okay, so if you can use this to just represent, right, to just represent areas where sale occurred, you can do that. Okay, you can even go ahead and create something like this. Okay, let's adjust this. Okay, I'm going to just copy and paste this so that I'll use that for the sake of illustration. Okay, okay, let us illustrate with this now. So I can use this for the field map just to show areas where sale occurred or sales occurred. And I can just use this as size for the sake of size. Okay. I can go ahead and replace this map with this. So this shows the size of it and this the area of sale, basically. So you can try those. Now, what is here is this. On this visual here, on this one with the bubble, that is on the map, we can go to format visuals now. Under map settings, you see the style, right? You can select different style. Arial, okay? You can select this area. You can select dark, okay? You can select light. You select grayscale, basically different formats, okay? Select road, it was on road initially. You can also hide the labels on the map if you like. Now on the bubbles, you can see this, right? These are the bubbles. On the bubbles, you can scale the size of the bubbles. You can increase the size of the bubbles, okay? Then the colors too, you can determine the colors of the bubbles, okay? But our theme is green, so let's just go with that, okay? Then the category labels are what? Off, because we didn't put the category labels before initially. So let's put it off. Then you can decide to switch between bubbles and heat map. If you put on the heat map, the bubbles can be shown as heat map instead. So it depends on your choice for visualization. Okay. Now we can go to general now. Title, this is the title, sum of, okay? You can put off the title and put on the title, right? In the title, you can also edit this title instead of having a sum of ROI. You can decide to say country versus ROI. You can also determine the color, right? If you don't want your label to be black, you can change it to the green, right, that you use around. So it depends on what you want, okay? This is the alignment, okay? The alignment of your labels. You want it to be aligned center, left, or right. Depends on what you want, okay? Okay, so you can basically do the same thing for this. Let us work on the title. We can call this one stale area, okay? Just so that the maps will not mean the same thing. You can just use the same data to present something different, okay? You can work on this as we did earlier. Let us pick green, and that is for the title, right? And make the title center as well so that it matches this, okay? Here now, we want to work on this. So we'll click to highlight it, then go to visualization pane, click on format visual. So you can see you can basically work on the x-axis and the y-axis, okay? You can work on that. Let's go to general and work on the title. So instead of sum of ROI, we know that it is sum of ROI, so we can just say ROI by country, right? And since we made these others green, let us make it green as well, okay? Like in the shadows, if you put on the shadows, we have the shadows just as we did for the cards, okay? Let's expand the shadows. You can decide to say your position or the position of the shadow can be center anyhow you like it. So if you do that, this is how it's going to look like, okay? All right, so let us look at working on the axis. If you look at the y-axis, on the y-axis, you have the title, right? You have the title, which is country. But without this title, will you know these countries? You will know, right? If you put it off, you still know that this is country anyway. So that is it, okay? All right. So let's go to the x-axis. On the x-axis, you can also, instead of having just sum of ROI, you can just say ROI, okay? If you write ROI, you are going to have ROI instead of sum of ROI. That basically makes your chart neater, okay? Let us do the same thing for this, okay? Okay, remember our business case, we had high return on investment, some countries, and negative return on investment in some countries. We had negative in Japan, we have high in other countries. All right, so now the goal is we want to actually see the high performers, and if we can create space for the bottom performers as well, right? But we wouldn't be scrolling up and down to do this. We can filter, right? Filter to see the top number. We don't necessarily have to create or write DAX for our top numbers, okay? In this case. So what I'm going to do is to showcase the top five. And to showcase the top five, we will use this filter pane. You know, we have not used this filter pane. So we are going to use this filter pane now. Now, to filter, you can filter based on any condition you want to. And I would like you to critically look at it and work on it and see what you can do to understand some of these. But here, we just want to select the top numbers, and we'll do that. But before I do that, let me show you that we have filters on this visual, okay? This visual that we selected. We have filter on the page, that is the entire page, and we have filter on all pages if we have more than one page, okay? So we can apply these filters across as we have them. All right, so now we want to apply filter on the selected visual, okay? And where we want to select the, apply the visual is on country, okay? So I'm going to click the drop down in country. Some basic selection right now, that is to say, basically, we can just select countries individually, which is not what we want to do. So I'm going to click the drop down and I click on top end, right? So I'm going to insert a value. If it's top 10, you say top 10. If it's top 5, it's 5. So I want to see top 5, right? So it's asking by what value do you want to see the top 5? So you know that is by our return on investment value, right? So I'm going to pick return on investment there to add it there, okay? So I'll click on apply filter, and now you see I don't have to scroll. I just have the top performing countries, okay? So that is how that works. So you can, if it's of interest to you as well, you can also have a visual to see the bottom, okay? You can look at the bottom forming, okay? And to apply that filter, right, you can use the top end and still select bottom, right? Let us apply the filter for the bottom 5. If you apply this filter, then you look at the bottom 5 performance. That's the worst performing countries, okay? Hope you can see that, all right? Let's go back to the top performing, apply that filter and have them there. Okay, we can group this, right? Just click, hold, drag to highlight everything. Okay, under format, you can see group, right? You group this so that it becomes just one visual. Okay, so you can move it around without having to adjust and so on. Okay, let's group them. And click, hold, drag to group. Okay, so let's group this as well. So now we can adjust, you see, as one singular or one single object. Okay, then again, you don't have to drag in and so on to adjust. One thing with design is that to have a good design, you can make sure that your spaces are equal. So to do that, I'm going to just highlight all of these. I'm going to hold down Shift and click on them to highlight them all together, or click, hold, and drag to highlight them all together. Then you still go to format, you go to align, and then we want to distribute horizontally, right? Distribute horizontally means because they're arranged horizontally, we want to make sure that the space between them are equal. Okay. So you can also make sure that you continue your design process so that everything looks kind of very good. Let's send this to back. Okay. So you can continue to do that. You can do this way to make your visuals beautiful and appealing, okay? Because it has to be appealing and it also has to communicate sense, okay? So let's send this to back or backward. Okay. All right, so you can fix the shadow here so that it looks exactly the same like this. So that will be under effects. Let's put on the shadow and make the shadow center so that it's going to have that spread. You can also work on the shadow spread. Okay. All right. Now we have done this. So we need to also insert a slicer. A slicer is also a visual. You can find it here. This is a slicer. The slicer is what will help us slice based on what we pick as a slicer to slice through the data we have. Okay. But before that, let me insert this. So I'm going to insert and go to shapes. Let me just insert this shape here so that we can have a title, right? Let's have a title for our dashboard, and maybe we can also have the logo of the company and so on. So in some situations, you have your title at the top. Some you can just have, if you have a short title, you can have that short title. You also need a space for you to insert your slicers as well. So let us go ahead and insert our slicer. So for the slicer now, we need to also pick by what we are slicing through. Okay. Now I'm going to just pick region because the campaign are exactly the same. It's just one campaign. If you pick on country, what will happen each time you select a particular country, you can just see the key performance indicator for that country. However, all of these visuals are going to have just one bar. All right, so let us now use region. So we are going to pick region to the field, okay? It still happens for you if you just check it anyway. So we have a slicer here with the region, okay? You can determine the style of the slicer. Okay, so let's basically select that slicer and come to format your visual. On that slicer setting, you can decide if it's going to be a vertical list, if it's going to be a tile, all right, or if it's going to be a drop-down list, something like this, okay? If you reduce this and drop the drop-down, you see that you have that drop-down here. So you can basically select as you like them, okay, or adjust your setting as you like them. You can adjust your slicer to your style. Let's make it a vertical list, okay, so that it can actually, we can use our space better. Okay, then let's set the title of our dashboard. We can go to insert, then click on text box, okay, and then go ahead and write what we want to write. This is a box as well, so we are going to also be removing the background, but let's go ahead and write what we want to write. We want to call it advert performance dashboard, okay? So we can centralize this and increase the font size and adjust this so that, yes, so this is fine. All right. So we can look at format text box here because we are we highlighted the text box, right? We are highlighting the text box, so that's why we have it here. So on effects, we'll say no background, put off background. Okay. Then on the text, we want to make the color of the text white because of green background, right? And make it bold. Okay, so let us adjust this. We put our logo up here. Okay, so I'm just going to use our own logo. All right, let's go to insert. We want to insert an image. Okay, we'll go to where we have the image. Okay, so we've inserted the image. We can adjust size and drag it to where we want to put it. Okay, adjust it further to make sure it sits properly. Okay, all right. So let us look at what we have done and see how we slice through, right? So we can, when we click on our slicer, you can see the performance in Africa. These are the countries in Africa. You can see the African map. You can see the heat map showing here in Africa, okay? You can see the various countries that sale occurred in Africa. That's why I say sales area here, right? Let's go to Asia. You can see it, right? And we go to Europe. If we go to Asia, you can see that in Asia, we had low or negative ROI in a country like Japan, okay? And you can also see radio had higher ROI compared to others, and YouTube was the least, okay? In Africa, you can see that influencer had the higher ROI. So this will inform stakeholders as to the channels that are best suited for specific countries or specific continents. Okay. Now, if you go to Latin America, you see the countries in Latin America and see that radio that was the highest in Asia is the lowest in Latin America. So you can see how we slice through our data, right, to derive insights. You can also see total ad spend in these areas or this region, right? Total revenue and the average return on investment in this region. Okay, you can see that. So to clear our selection, we just click on the clear selection button here and we'll have our entire dashboard again. So now, congratulations, and I utilize clear explanations so that even those who are new to Power BI will be able to grasp the processes and the steps to create their dashboards. We can only get better from these. Okay, so we'll be expecting your deliverable and ensure that you make sure that it looks good and it can pass the information to the stakeholders. So what is expected is that you'll be expected to submit a dashboard, this dashboard, and also a memo explaining your outcome. That is your conclusion and recommendation based on ad spend. Okay, do have a wonderful day ahead. God bless you.